everyone, and today we are in conversation with the beautiful Angelique, and she is super versatile. She's not only a fashion model, but she's also written a book. She sings, and she's also an influencer on Instagram. So, Angelique, and she's a single mother too, so she does a lot. She has a lot on her plate. And Angelique, please, I want to hear about you. Who are you? And please go ahead.
So, you did such a great job, Nishi, of opening it up and saying a few words about me. But, really, you asked me a few days ago to really think about who is Angelique, and what I came up with was my life is a series of moments, of small snippets of stories that have allowed me to discover who I am and how I can serve my global community when it comes to sharing my vulnerabilities, my stories. How I learned to be alone was through being bullied through school, right, and dealing with damaging relationships, and how to be aware of my needs. That was addiction and eating disorders and mental health issues, right? And so who I am now is someone so uniquely aware of how I'm influenced by my environment, how I go out into my world and influence others. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I want you to tell us, since we'll be doing a series of interview with Angelique, she has so much interesting stuff to share. I want you to tell me something about your childhood. How did you grow up? You have an interesting story, so I want everyone to hear about it.
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, I was an only child to a teen mom. My parents did stay together, but my mom was 19 years old when she had me, and she was not, it wasn't news that she was necessarily embraced for. So my parents had to, work long hours. I was poor. So, mom would work during the day, dad would work during the nights. We didn't have money for babysitters and daycare. So I lived in isolation. I didn't have a group of friends. My parents were very socially awkward people. So when I did go to school, I was a socially awkward little girl who only knew how to have conversations with adults. And so trying to have deep, compelling, enriching conversations, at 6 years of age or 7 years of age with other children, they looked at it like I was a little bit of a crazy person.
I totally can relate to you because my son, I'm a single mother too, and he's the same way because he's grown up with all adults. There are no children in us home, right? I have two brothers who are older, and then my mom.
Yes.
And then I have grandparents and uncles and aunts, and they're all older, right?
That's
and
right.
he's the first great grandchild of my grandparents. So he's exactly like he's more in tune with adults than
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And then on top of that, I was a child in school who, not only didn't get along with other children, so I was ostracized and bullied and alienated, but then I also had, teachers who at the time, there wasn't a lot of sympathy for a child who didn't fit in. The school had coded me incorrectly and hadn't shared that information with me or my parents. And I was basically coded as having special needs when I didn't, because of the fact that I didn't fit in. So that feeling of not fitting in, not being okay as who I was, that started very early, and it developed into feelings of worthlessness and low self-esteem. I started to smoke. I started to drink alcohol in my parents' basement. I started looking around for relationships that could fulfill me, right? Because, well, if I'm wrong on my own, how do I fix that? Well, I get people to like me. And the way that I found, people to like me was when I was 13 years old. I hit puberty and I thought, I look good now. And I started to get noticed by men. And so I started to have relations with guys, and it was horrible. I was really selling myself to be accepted by others, and that is still something that I struggle with all the time, because we don't look at ourselves when we go through life as, I did the best that I could with what I had in that moment. That's all I knew what was the right thing to do. We punish ourselves that, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that, and we create a lot of negative narratives around what we've done.
And we think we are worth, like, that's what we are worth for. And not only that, it's our way to get validated.
Yes.
So you're not the only one. I've heard a lot of women and young girls going through what you have. And it's not just happened in the past, it's also happening till this day. So
Yes.
Thank you for sharing this. So how did you overcome this? Like, how did you realize? What made you realize?
Well, what I realized was that all of the relationships that I was having, they all ended very poorly. And it was always the same sort of relationship over and over and over. I was just switching up people. So I wasn't learning the lesson. That's how life works. It just keeps giving you the same lesson and trades up different people. But when I had no one around me, it was 2020 that this happened. I developed pneumonia at the beginning of COVID, when COVID had become an issue. And so I was put into self-isolation quarantine for 4 weeks. Because I couldn't breathe. It was just, I thought I was dying, actually. And during that time, I didn't have the television. I didn't want to be listening to music or doing anything. I just wanted to read. And I thought, I have a choice. If I'm going to move forward in my life, I have to figure out a way to end these patterns. These are not just my patterns. These are my familial patterns, what's been going on through my ancestry. And I need to break it. So I started to analyze myself, and it takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to do that. But yeah. I looked at, these were my relationships. These were my thoughts. These were my patterns. And I wrote my book. And it's a self-recovery book about how do we move forward in our lives when we don't really know who we are, because that's where addiction stems from. That's where low self-esteem stems from.
What's the name of your book?
It's called Whole Nation, a Self-Recovery Movement. Right now it's with the publishers. So I've been told that's all I'm allowed to say. But it's all about the ways that I self-taught myself how to get through those obstacles, how to unlearn who I wasn't, who I believed I was because of my history, and then how to step into who I really was unapologetically, and how to also forgive myself. And we use that word a lot. We always talk about forgiveness, but it's a word that falls so flat. People don't actually understand what forgiveness is. They don't understand how to apply it. But when we go through our lives holding a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't belong to us anymore, it's hard to move forward. And so forgiveness was a big part of that book. It does, yeah.
So I remember you told me that you yourself was also in an abusive relationship.
Yes, I was.
What kind of abuse did you, like, what was?
Yeah, the abuse was much like what your mom had outlined. It was every sort of abuse under the sun. I mean, it was physical. It started out as emotional and psychological. I was stupid. I was never enough. Why didn't you get that right? And then it went into physical, where I was beaten, and I was always told, I always knew when I was going to get beaten, because it was go upstairs, go to our room, and then I'd have to just pretend that all was well, and deal with the children when I was done. And then there was sexual abuse. I was raped multiple times in my marriage, which was very hard to come to terms with. And then it was financial. I worked. I was the one who brought in the money. My ex-husband was he wanted to go to school and get his degree. So it was, I was told that him going to school is probably a lot more promising than me going to school, and I believed him. So I didn't get a degree, and I instead worked and learned my way up the corporate ladder. But yeah, when it came to spending the money, I was told I wasn't allowed to. And each month we would have to reconcile our visa statement, and line by line with a highlighter, he would highlight the ones that he didn't recognize and say, "What is this?" And I'd have to speak to it. So it was quite humiliating.
And you're the one who's actually making the money, not him.
That's right. And there would be no consulting me if he wanted to spend that money. He simply told me he knew how to spend it properly. So I remember, as a result of that, when I had first left my ex-husband, going to Walmart to go shopping, I didn't know how much money I made. I didn't understand how far that would go.
My mom was the same.
Yes. And so I remember having the two children in Walmart and in the frozen section, and I'm looking at all of these different containers of things, and I just started crying. I just started having a complete meltdown in the middle of a Walmart aisle, thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. And it's that moment of pain was pivotal, because it made me realize that I had been so codependent on another human being for looking after me that I had never actually looked after myself. And so a lot of growth came from that. And now I've almost gone too far the other way. Where I don't want anybody to look after me. Yeah.
Because I've seen my mom, the way she was. So I am like, I don't want to be answerable to anyone, because I feel like, because I always saw her doing it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, and it's like people usually rebel in different ways, and they so what was your way of kind of showing the society or the world that, okay, you can do this? Like, how women, they do it drastically. They change themselves, they change the wardrobe, they'll something physical, because sometimes that's easier than going through the emotional steps, right? So what have you changed?
Well, I mean, for me, for many years, just trying to find myself, it's a gradual process. Self-improvement and self-empowerment is a gradual process. Yes. You're not going to do it overnight, and it's going to be a lifelong journey. However, it was doing the things that made me feel confident, right? Because when you don't know what confidence is, you can only go by what you think it is. And that's, for me, it was how I dressed. And so I remember going out and buying myself a power suit and just a big black pantsuit. And I thought, yeah, I am a tiger in this, right? And, putting my hair up, I had very sleeked back sort of look. And
to give that aura of like, I'm strong, don't mess with me kind of thing.
That's right. And instead of making eye contact with people, I always say I was practicing modeling before I was even a model. But instead of walking into a room and looking at people, because eye contact is very intimidating and it's scary to hold eye contact when you feel so small. So for me, I would just look past people, look through people, right? And just walk into a room and just strut through that room and get where I needed to go, but not make eye contact with anyone. And everyone believed that that was confidence. But for me, it was the only way that I could get through a room feeling like I wasn't gonna, shrink in. And yeah, and so that was one way that I did it. And then, honestly, the rest of it is just always reminding myself that I've gotten to this point in my life. And that was me. That was me who did that. And it's not an accident that I've gotten to where I am. And it's, I don't have to prove anything, because where I've gotten, that's been on me.
And I think when you realize that and when you start loving yourself, regardless of anything, whether you're thin, whether you're fat, whether you're, fitting that social norm, it's okay. You know,
Oh, absolutely.
I for me,
Absolutely.
it's when I get a haircut. So every time
Yeah.
I will go short, like I'll do something which is totally, not there, right? And that's when
Yeah.
I feel very powerful.
Our hair is so much of our power, isn't
Yeah,
it?
and when I do that, I feel like a totally new person. And the
Yes.
shorter it is, the more powerful and more, I feel confident. I don't care what other people think. Maybe I don't even look good. I don't know.
Oh,
But
you look incredible. I was noticing that about you.
I
So
like
beautiful.
I like that. And
Yeah.
my mother always taught me, if you like it,
Yeah.
you will rock it. And
That's
you
right.
can look the most beautiful person in the world, but if you're not happy with yourself, you
Yeah.
will never, find that.
That's right.
You have to
Oh,
like
absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, that's the one thing that I think, especially as women, we forget so often is, how can we make ourselves feel great? And it doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't have to be a big spa day. It doesn't have
it.
to be a trip out to Mexico, right?
No, it can be something small.
Right? Like, I mean, I went, out to a farmer's market with my daughter, and I just got a ring, and it was an inexpensive little ring.
Looks
Here, I'll
oh,
show it.
it's so pretty.
Thank you. But I mean, it was so inexpensive and it didn't even matter. But I thought,
You felt good.
oh, that will make me feel really pretty, right? And when you can just treat yourself instead of withholding all the time, right? We don't get points for holding back and not looking after ourselves,
Yes.
right?
And do it for you, not to make other people happy. Like, you got this ring for yourself. You didn't get it to show people. It's
That's
for
right.
you. And when
Yeah,
you do things, like you said, those little things for yourself, that's when it comes on your face and your, how can I say, you give that aura, the
yeah,
vibe of confidence.
yes.
And I
Well, and
feel that
because you're looking after yourself, right? You're looking after yourself. And I don't know where along the way we started believing that by looking after ourselves, we're selfish,
yes.
because it's not selfish to look after yourself, because we don't have parents who are constantly around us every day looking after our needs. We become adults and we need to learn how to look after ourselves. And there is, our mental health depends on that.
Very true.
Yeah.
And till we don't fix it, no doctor, no psychologist, no one can. They can give you the
Yeah.
tools, but you still have to do it.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
Anjali, thank you. I know
Thank
you're
you.
busy, but I want to next time go more in detail about some of your addictions and how you overcame them.
Absolutely.
So everyone, watch out for the space and um, have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much.
So
You
thank you.
too. Take care.
You too.